You know what time it is. Thursday crossover for Week 7. Locked On 49ers, Locked On Vikings. Biggest storylines, key matchups in Week 7 coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Vikings fans, 49ers fans? Doing a little Monday Night Football preview. Kirk Cousins, Monday Night Football, playing the 49ers, who definitely have not done anything bad to anyone on Monday Night Football. I'm here with Brian Peacock. My name is Luke Braun. I do Locked On Vikings. Brian Peacock does Locked On 49ers. Here to talk about this matchup of two reigning NFC playoff teams. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Two teams that have lost 38-7 to the Eagles in NFC championships. We'll put it that way too. I'm already deep in the gallows on this one. I don't know if you can tell. But let's start with the broadest of broad strokes. Brian, yeah. What's the mood in San Francisco? You took your first loss. Are we out on Brock Purdy? Is he not suddenly the second coming of Tom Brady, or is that just is everybody just overreacting and everybody needs to chill?
Everyone's realizing he's a little shorter than Tom Brady. That's about as far as 49ers fans are willing to go down that road. To be honest with you,
well,
it's probably
it's measurable.
It might be the highest vibes post loss I can remember since I've been covering the 49ers on Locked On, which has been since 2017. So it's been a little while. And usually there's a lot of doomsday stuff going on, and there's some bad vibes as well coming off a loss. And you have to remind the fans sometimes and remind everybody that we didn't expect this team to go undefeated necessarily this year. This is a very good football team. Sure. They're good on offense. They're good on defense. They were going to lose some games. This was it. Bad weather on the road. Good defense. The Cleveland Browns got them. I think most 49ers fans, and especially me as an analyst looking at this game, I would say the injuries coming out of Cleveland were more worrisome than the actual loss. But we got good news on that today as well with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams. There's a chance all three of them could be playing on Monday night. I personally think if there's any risk of re-injury, it might be the right time to maybe hold Christian McCaffrey out for a week. Then you got a short week coming up, the next game against the Cincinnati Bengals, which is going to be a tough one as well. Just be smart with him because you need Christian McCaffrey healthy in January. As important as every week is, and I'm not trying to overlook the Minnesota Vikings here either, but it's been good news on the injury front. So I think most 49ers fans, and that's kind of how we've treated it on the podcast, is like, look, you take your lumps, you're not going undefeated. Okay. Now let's go 16-1, learn from it and bounce back. And it's probably bad news for the Minnesota Vikings that the 49ers got smacked in the mouth a little bit the week prior.
Yeah, right. Now they're not too big. Well, and that's like it's not overlooking, because I'm not taking it as overlooking the Vikings either. It's overlooking a regular season game. Because the 49ers are going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to be playing at home in the playoffs unless something super astounding happens with like Seattle. This is a team that feels like we can all close our eyes and just kind of say, okay, we'll see you in January. And then that's where we'll really find out what this season is going to be defined by. So I kind of get it that it's like, look, we are not going to, you guys aren't going to need every win in a division with the Rams and the Cardinals. And the Seahawks not exactly keeping pace right now either. So I kind of get that. But on the other hand, or at another point in that column, the US Bank turf has claimed a couple of people. Vikings don't have Justin Jefferson. Travis Kelce hurt his foot too. He had to play through something on Thursday. He's probably going to be dealing with that for a lot. So the Mike Williams got hurt on it too, and they're actually planning to replace it next year. So it's a problem that they are aware of, and they already have a plan in motion to swap that out. But that might also be part of the impetus. It's like, I don't know, man.
That's another reason, especially for, someone like Trent Williams got an ankle. If it's something to do with, lower leg, maybe that is a good reason to hold people out. I don't know if US Bank has claimed more bodies than MetLife in New York? Because the Niners
or FedEx in Washington. I believe last year 49ers played a preseason game in Minnesota, and I believe somebody did go out. who ended up in Minnesota. I think somebody did get hurt in that game too. Last time the 49ers played in Minnesota.
All I remember from that game,
you have to check me on that.
McGill looked really good, and then the 49ers ended up claiming him back onto their.
Yeah, insane that we cut him. We're still mad about that.
Yeah, he's not on either team right now, but we both remember the T.Y. McGill preseason game of 2022 is an all-time.
Yeah, it wasn't the only one too. He cooked that whole camp. He was great, and everybody's like, "Well, he's a lock to make the roster." And we tried to sneak him onto the practice squad and got burned. It was insane.
There's two angles to that with US Bank, because you get worried about the turf. Maybe that's a reason to hold out Christian McCaffrey. Maybe it's a reason to hold out Trent Williams. Who knows? We'll see. And as the week goes on, we'll have a better idea. They're all kind of day to day, and they might all three not play. They might all three play, but they're not major long-term injuries for all three players, which is great news for the 49ers. But turf aside, even better news for the 49ers, Luke, is we learned what young quarterback Brock Purdy's kryptonite actually is. And
what is that? That's my next thing is, how'd the Browns do it?
That is not going to be a problem, because it is a substance that covers 70% of the earth that will not be falling from the sky during that football.
In Minnesota. It was a rain game. All right.
That literally, I think, is the first time I've seen Brock Purdy look a little uncomfortable. And it wasn't so much the game was moving fast and he was making mental mistakes. It was just missing throws, kind of ball falling out of his hand a little bit. And he's got 9.25-inch hands. They're not super small hands. They're not, they're 24th percentile hand size, according to NFL Combine quarterbacks. I don't know if it's actually a problem, but he looked uncomfortable throwing the football, and the ball wasn't coming out right, and did not come out the same as it did every other game I've seen Brock Purdy play in his short NFL career. So maybe we did find Brock Purdy's kryptonite, and unfortunately for the Minnesota Vikings, it's something that's not going to be in play Monday night.
Well, yeah, the operational staff of the Vikings would have to get some really creative ideas. Yeah, so the argument is with Purdy, it was a fluke, and it's not going to happen again. It was a fluke. It was the weather. Don't worry about it unless it's raining again.
And I will say, coming out of that game, because the 49ers played the Cowboys and the Browns back-to-back. And, all season long, it's been, okay, maybe the best defenses in the league are the 49ers and the Cowboys. And then they play each other. And the 49ers doubled their season total of giving up points. They scored 42 on them.
Well, the Browns might be in that conversation now.
And then the Browns come, and then the 49ers play the Browns. It's like, oh, the Browns defense looked a lot better than the Cowboys defense. They have the dudes to play the scheme they're playing. They stopped the run well. Dalvin Tomlinson was good in the interior. Myles Garrett's a freak of freaks. We kind of already knew how much of a freak he was. And then going against a one-legged Trent Williams, he ragdolled Trent in a way I've never seen in ever. And there was another play where Myles Garrett chased Christian McCaffrey to the sidelines. Like a guy that big's not supposed to be moving that fast. So in a league of freaks,
but we have our own guy like that. We have our own super alien dude. But we'll get to matchups later.
Maybe a subpar NFL starting right tackle and a banged up Trent Williams. That's where the aliens need to come and make their presence known and hit Brock Purdy, because no quarterback is great when he's on his back, right? Or he's getting hit as he's
well, this is the first time. Second time that Trent gets to play his protege, play against his little mentee, Christian Darrisaw.
Oh, Darrisaw, that's right. Yeah.
He's still doing great.
We're talking about all these other teams. But did you hear the interview with Chicago Bears former player personnel director, Josh Harris, I believe is his name, something like that? He was on a Chicago radio show talking about how Darrisaw might have been in Chicago if they didn't end up trading up in the 2021 draft for Justin Fields.
Makes a lot of sense.
But the Vikings were also, if I'm not mistaken, also trying to trade up as well, right? And ended up with Darrisaw.
No, they traded down from 14. They traded down with the Jets, who got Elijah Vera Tucker. And then they traded down pretty further than Rick Spielman wanted to. And then they were just like sweating, and then they tried to trade back. So they tried to just kind of trade down, but less, and kind of go back up. And they didn't get that deal done. And then they were super, super, super sweating. They super thought the Colts were going to take Darrisaw. They took Kwity Paye, and then it was good from there. Or no, it was the Raiders who took Alex Leatherwood. That was what it was.
Oh, wow.
Over Darrisaw. Yeah, Raiders fans will let you know about that.
That was a run for the Raiders in the draft. Wow. Damn.
Yeah. But hey, look, so there's other other stuff going on here.
Yeah.
We still haven't talked about how Justin Jefferson isn't going to play and what's going to happen there, and how the Vikings will be able to attack the 49ers secondary, and also maybe how the Vikings can attack a hobbled Trent Williams, as you sort of hinted to. So we are going to get into that next.
Today's crossover episode, Locked On 49ers, Locked On Vikings, is brought to you by Bird Dogs. And I love my Bird Dogs pants. Bird Dogs, they make you look good, but you feel good while you're looking good with Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that truly sculpted look. Bird Dogs shorts do the exact same thing as any of the most fancy brands you can think of, right? And they fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing their own cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Bird Dog, the best thing probably about my Bird Dogs is they're so versatile. I got Bird Dog shorts with a liner in them. I go to a barbecue, go to a pool party. I can jump in the pool, stay out of the pool. It doesn't matter. I'm comfortable all day long in hot weather in my long pants. You go to work and you fit in with any environment. They are so versatile. Love wearing them out on the golf course as well. And you can get yourself a special deal on Bird Dogs by going to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or entering promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you.
Thanks so much to those of you who listen to Locked On Vikings or Locked On 49ers each and every day, all of our everydayers. This is the time of week where I strongly encourage Vikings fans, go listen to Locked On 49ers, go spy on the enemy a little bit. 49ers fans, come on through. We'll talk about stuff. Come hang out for the bold predictions that I do on Fridays. That's always really fun. And also check out the YouTube channels for each of our shows. On Sunday morning before the games start, they do the NFL live kickoff. It's a live show. It's like our own pregame show. That's been really fun as well. But let's get into this. So the elephant in the room for the Vikings is no Justin Jefferson, right? They managed to win despite some putrid offense against Chicago. That's kind of a Bears thing. The Vikings have to put together some offense because Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to move the ball. The plan, I guess, so far has been TJ Hawkinson and trying to feature Jordan Addison a little bit more on some of those deeper routes. Using KJ Osborne as a role player as well. That's the way the Vikings have tried to put this together. Of those three players, are any of them names that stick out to you as somebody that the 49ers could have trouble with, either the mismatched tight end type or the deep route type, or just kind of that, ever so work ethic, grindy possession receiver type?
I don't think there's one style of player that is super worrisome because the 49ers have done such a great job against most of those players this season. CD Lamb, Sunday Night Football, Cowboys, was like, okay, the 49ers had kind of had a little bit of a revolving door trying to figure out what they wanted to do in the slot. They brought in Isaiah Oliver in the offseason to play in the slot. Apparently they didn't like that in the preseason and camp, so they started moving Diamador Lindor from the outside into the slot and put Ambry Thomas on the outside. And then Ambry Thomas started getting torched on the outside. So they kind of flipped back to that. And now that's where we are again. And so we thought, oh man, CD Lamb's the best sort of a slot type receiver, moves around a lot, could be a mismatch problem. He caught 4 passes for 40 yards. It just wasn't a problem for the 49ers. So the scheme is sound. The players are playing it really well. They're not giving up big plays. I would say slot fades have been a problem for the 49ers. So, speed out of the slot, going to the corner can be a big play potentially where, I don't, because I know Justin Jefferson moves around, is in the slot or not. Does Jordan Addison do the move around thing now that
they all do?
Jefferson is out, or okay.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell doesn't really do the, you're the outside, you're the slot, they'll have the fullback line up in the slot. They'll have the tight end line up out. They move everybody around everywhere, 2-man stacks, bunches, guys coming in motion, all kinds of things, especially with Addison, who's a smaller receiver. They're going to try to get him like free releases with that stuff. So unless you're shadowing, the Vikings will really try to like dictate the matchups.
So there's going to be a CJ Ham game is what you're trying to tell me.
Always is, baby. Nothing like a CJ Ham game. So here's the thing. The Vikings offense last week without Jefferson ran through a name we haven't said yet, which is Alexander Mattison. He out-touched the team. He had 25 touches. The rest of the team combined had 24, which is insanity. And a lot of that was checking down, things that weren't necessarily planned to go to Mattison that went to Mattison, and just running the ball a lot. At the end of the game, 6 of those touches were run plays that were, just draining clock. So that's probably a little misleading, but not like that misleading.
Is that a function of, okay, there's less guys open because Justin Jefferson's not out there, so I'm just checking down?
Yeah, some of that is Kirk being Kirk. Sometimes he will turn down things that he could take, but he's not going to take, especially if he gets spooked off of, say, throwing a weird, ball batted in the air kind of interception. Sometimes he'll recoil and suddenly get really, really, really quick to go to his check downs. That's something that, as of this recording, I'll have a better answer on when this comes out, it'll be yesterday's episode of Locked On Vikings, but recording is kind of out of order. So put a pin in that until I've actually been able to sort of review that more in terms of that game. But I will say that Cousins has been, I'm going to say, inconsistent. He's had some times where he just goes total white blind, sees God, and just can't be stopped and hits everything. And he's aggressive and he's throwing these pinpoint darts. And then sometimes you're like, why did you come off of that and throw a covered check down to the fullback? Or sometimes he'll just stop up and take a sack, right? And just brain turns off. He's been more inconsistent this year than he was. I mean, last year he really did a great job of getting rid of that stuff. But it's been up and down, which I don't know. This could be Kirk Cousins' best chance to audition for the 49ers, who, obviously have wanted to trade for him for 6 years.
Yeah. It's finally he's going to be available, and they found another guy. And the apple of Shanahan's eye is Brock Purdy.
Truly, the things just didn't line up. It's that old flame we all have from high school, but it just never quite. Yeah,
it's the one that got away.
Yeah.
I want to ask you kind of the similar question about the receivers, and I know everyone kind of. I'm sure most people listening to this podcast have a good idea of T.J. Hawkinson, and I'm sure the usage is going to go up, and sort of a chain moving, high volume tight end in that offense. But what has Jordan Addison shown as a rookie wide receiver? Because I like a lot of what I've seen, but I haven't seen every snap like you have, Luke. So what can we expect to see from Jordan Addison, not only against the 49ers, but the rest of his rookie year, now that he's kind of the de facto number one without when Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, until Jefferson gets back. The word I'll use is explosiveness. He's a take the top off the defense. He has gotten a breakaway touchdown in 3 games so far. He had a shot at another one that turned into an underthrown DPI 1st and goal. He has shown a lot of speed, and he's a very savvy route runner for a rookie. Where he it's not just a post route, it's not just a go route. He's actually leaning things and kind of taking advantage of the coverages, and he has a pretty good knowledge of corner is stemming this thing to the inside a little bit. Here's how I attack that kind of stuff. But the problem has been with physical coverage. When you get somebody playing catch technique, playing press, he struggles to fight through the body, and he did at USC too. He's just a smaller body, and so he's struggling with that kind of stuff. He'll get stopped up there. And I think what he really could do a better job of is selling that contact and trying to draw illegal contact flags. Because some of that catch technique, and we saw one just in the Monday Night Football game of just the smallest contact from a corner playing catch technique, which guys are starting to do against Addison all the time, where you play flat-footed and you make them come through you and basically take the charge, right, and try to ruin their rhythm. Any tiny little bit of contact from that is going to get the flag if the receiver is savvy enough to throw their hands up and be a theater kid about it. And I really think that that's a skill that Addison could use to help get people to sort of back off him a little bit. But if you're not, if you don't have corners that like to play physical, if you have corners that prefer to be fast or prefer to use technique, or, if you don't have the big, beat you up kind of Richard Sherman kind of corner, then you're not if you don't have that skill set, then it's a lot harder to hang with Jordan Addison. But there are a lot of those guys in the league. So it's been explosive, but not consistent.
And KJ Osborne he might be one of the most underrated receivers in the league, because I kind of overlook him all the time, but he's always kind of there and making some plays. Not like you're not worried because you're rolling into town and KJ Osborne's going to be playing against you and you're covering him. But I don't think he should be necessarily taken as, Justin Jefferson's not playing, so they can't throw the ball on us.
Yeah, he's definitely not like a premier weapon, but he's very clutch. It's always a third down. It's always, end of the game, big time stuff. The moment's never too big for him. He's I think really good for that locker room for that reason as well. But how this game is actually going to go down, hey, there's a whole bunch of ways. So let's get into our actual predictions. And I also want to interrogate a couple of other things in the trenches. So we've still got quite a bit to talk about on Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network.
Today's episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Vikings brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now our listeners can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's all new customers. $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Whatever happens in that first $5 bet, if you win it, if you lose it, you still get those $200 in bonus bets. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on that action. And we get those $200 in bonus bets. You can use them on anything that they have, like spreads, player props, over-unders. Love the parlays. Build your own parlays. I mean, the app is so easy to use. It's safe. The app and the website, it couldn't be laid out better. You can find all of the football bets you want, all of the NFL bets you want. You can bet on that 49ers -7 if you want on Monday Night Football. And you better hurry up and get that number before it starts to grow if there's good news on some of those injured 49ers heading towards Monday Night Football. And you can bet on any sport out there. NBA is getting going. Major League Baseball playoffs are happening right now. NHL getting started as well. And if snooker's your thing, you can find that at FanDuel. So all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get this thing going. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Jace Medical, and in particular their Jace case, which has 5 life-saving antibiotics that can get delivered directly to your door and be on hand in case of an emergency. It's one thing to have just like a generic first aid kit. It's another thing to have this Jace case on hand for stuff that can be kind of hard to get in a moment where you might not have access to those drugs. It might take a long time to get a prescription and then get it shipped to you. You might not medically have that time on hand, especially with like supply chain shortages and all kinds of other stuff going on in the global economy. The FDA chief has been talking about this as well. There's been some stuff in the news that might mess with you. So go to jacemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. Wrapping things up here on Crossover Thursday on the Locked On NFL Podcast Network, here with Brian Peacock, Locked On 49ers. I do Locked On Vikings. Let's start to talk about how we think some of these things are going to play out. And I guess with the trenches on the Vikings defensive line side, definitely no Marcus Davenport. He's maybe going on IR with a high ankle sprain, so certainly not playing in this game. But Danielle Hunter potentially against that hobbled Trent Williams. Are you worried about Danielle Hunter kind of wrecking a whole bunch of things in the backfield, or is Brock Purdy going to be able to run around and take care of this, or get the ball out to, McCaffrey or Debo or whoever's going to play?
It could be a problem. Week 1, TJ Watt wrecked the 49ers up front. He got to Purdy multiple times, 2 strip sacks. One of them Purdy landed on, the other the Steelers got, but the 49ers dominated him so thoroughly the rest of the game, and in every other facet, it didn't matter at all. It didn't have an impact on the game, which is a rarity. Last week, the 49ers met their match up front with the Cleveland Browns. They did a really good job. They stopped the run, and in the rain, Purdy wasn't having a good time throwing the football. So it can be something that can be an advantage for the Minnesota Vikings. Micah Parsons didn't hurt the 49ers. TJ Watt did, but it still didn't matter. So it is certainly an area that the Vikings could win, especially against a hobbled Trent Williams or on the other side against Colton McKivitz. And he's a great player. So yeah, that's definitely one of the key matchups, I think, in this game. You got to get him blocked up, and you got to make sure that their best player on defense isn't in Brock Purdy's lap the entire game. And I think I would be in trouble from my listeners, Luke, if I didn't ask what it would take for the 49ers to send to the Vikings so Hunter could get on the 49ers plane and go back with them to San Francisco.
3 months of your time? He's going to be a free agent next year. His contract is voiding out. I don't think so. The rumors have been, at least the way that I have been able to parse them out, with Kirk Cousins. I think the only thing that could make the Vikings do it is if a contender's quarterback goes, like if Brock Purdy goes down, then the 49ers, then we start saying, all right, start sending us your first round picks, and we're going to kind of bend you over a barrel in this circumstance.
Right.
If it's, I don't think Justin Jefferson's on the table. I don't think anybody else outside of, guys that are maybe deeper on the roster, like, you're not getting superstar blockbusters. It might be, somebody said like KJ Osborne, right?
Right.
Who is a free agent at the end of the season as well. With Hunter, I think they probably expect to get a pretty big comp pick out of that. So you got to at least do better than that. But I honestly think, I honestly think if it's not starting at a second, I don't think they bother with it. And I think that's probably what it would take, but it also would take, you got to get the Vikings at a really down moment. And there's only 2 games left, I think, before the trade deadline.
It's Halloween, I believe. Yeah. So 2 games, and then it'll be before the next. Are those games? So I can't remember if it's right before that week happens or right after it.
I think there's 2. But so what you need to beat the Vikings by 50 and make it feel like the Vikings are dead. If they say they lose to the 49ers, but they win the next game, I think it's against Green Bay, and they're sitting at 3-5, they're not fire sailing, right? They need to get beat so bad against the 49ers, then also go get killed by the Packers. Then maybe you can get something at the deadline and they're going, okay, we're 2-6, we're dead, right? 3-5 doesn't feel that way. And even that, you still go, I don't know, rattle off 2 wins and we're back to 500. Doesn't feel that crazy. They need to be I think they needed to lose against the Bears, to be honest with you.
Was Hunter
to go into fire sale mode
in the offseason?
No. A lot of people called. It never really made sense with the contract. A lot of people tried during the draft, and I think it was basically the Vikings would have had to cut somebody else to make space for the dead cap that it would take to trade Danielle Hunter. So it's like, if you want us to go through all that, you got to give us like 2 firsts, and nobody was going to come close to that.
Okay.
And then they got another contract worked out in camp that got him happy and to play through the season. I think if the Vikings really gave him a true contract extension offer that he was happy with, he'd be happy to stay in Minnesota, but they haven't really done that, which I have been pretty critical of them for. I think you got to get him in free agency if you want him.
That seems strange to let, one of your best players, if you're trying to build something going forward, to let him get disgruntled to the point where he can't even be an option for you anyway, and then not get that much for him when he walks.
They will try to extend him next offseason, but his contract will void and he'll go hit free agency in March. They'll try to figure it out. I don't know if they're like really willing to do it. If they're willing to shell out. Kwesi's been fairly frugal with that, and which I hate. Just pay your good players. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But he'll also be going into his age 30 season, and as soon as you hit the age of 30, you're no longer allowed to be good. So
you can't be good anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, you dissolve into ash on your 30th birthday. That's the human tradition.
As soon as the pension hits, you're like, you're
right. Might as well start collecting those Social Security checks, lining up that Fox TV deal because you're about to retire.
Is there a worry, and I hate to get too deep into the offseason stuff here because we want to talk a little bit about this game more, but is there a worry amongst...
I guess these are predictions.
Let's predict the offseason. Is there a worry amongst Vikings fans or amongst analysts, amongst the Luke Brauns of the world, that Justin Jefferson's like, no thanks on that extension?
No. So the last offer was from his camp, and the Vikings were the ones that declined it and said, let's revisit this after the season. He's been very much an active participant in the negotiations. They just didn't come to a deal. He has shown zero indication that he's at all upset about this. I don't think, like, personally, I don't think he cares, because he already is getting so much money from endorsements that, like, this is not like somebody finally getting their biggest payday ever. Like, he already got the Madden money. He's doing all right. And they'll pick that up over the season, but the relationship has been very, very amicable. I think there is a lot of concern because Vikings fans are very hurt. You know, they had Stephon Diggs, they had Randy Moss get traded a couple decades ago. Like, this has happened to the Vikings a couple times. So I think fans are a little bit jittery, but there is absolutely nothing possibly indicating that Justin Jefferson is on his way to anything but an extension. And honestly, it behooves Jefferson to wait too, because the longer he waits, the more the price goes up. So it's also just kind of like negotiation. Personally, I'd be pretty surprised at this particular junction until I hear something else, until I actually hear somebody say, yeah, Justin Jefferson's mad. And it's not just somebody like failing to read body language. I'm not gonna really lose any sleep over it.
As far as matchups go, we talked about the Vikings defense and Danielle Hunter and getting pressure on Purdy. My question would be on the Vikings defense is, how are they stopping the run? And the second level defenders, Kyle Shanahan loves to use the defense's rules against them. He loves to put linebackers in a blender. So covering McCaffrey out of the backfield, stopping the run, even if McCaffrey's not playing, Shanahan's offense is run the ball. You know, that's going to happen. Tackling Deebo Samuel, tackling George Kittle over the middle of the field. Talk to me about that group in the front seven, up the middle, especially.
Yeah, well, offensively, we stole a bunch of this Shanahan stuff this year. We started running lead stuff. We've been using CJ Ham like his use check, and have tried to sort of revamp the run game that way, using more lead blockers and stuff. So that means the defense has been practicing against it all year. In terms of the run, I mean, look, they blitz an insane amount of the time. They've blitzed over 70% twice now on the season. It's unreal. Flores is entirely a lunatic. I love it. But that means that, if Brock Purdy can get the ball out of his hands quickly and throw to a hot route to a good yak player, that is kind of the formula to beat the Vikings. I don't know. Do you have any guys that are good after the catch that I haven't heard of?
If Brock Purdy gets the ball out, which he did against the Giants, and Wink Martindale, a defensive coordinator who blitzed 85% of his dropbacks in what week was that? Week 2, week 3? And it was the highest percentage in the StatCast era of dropbacks getting blitzed. And there was a little bit of funk at the beginning of the game with Brock Purdy figuring it out, and then he figured it out, and he was getting the ball out with crazy anticipation, not only finding hot reads and receivers close to the line of scrimmage. He was finding Deebo Samuel on a corner route at the pylon in the end zone. And so I don't know if that's the best way to beat Brock Purdy. Unless you're squirting water on the football before they snap it. That's the only thing I've seen that's been able to beat Brock Purdy this far. He's been pretty phenomenal with how quickly he processes, understands who's coming, what's going on, where to go with the football with anticipation, which is good against heavy blitzing, because there's just less guys in coverage at that point.
That's kind of how I've been familiar with it, which is why, I mean, look, I don't think any semi-realistic Vikings fan is going to look at this and say, yeah, the Vikings will take it. I think you have to pick on 49ers win and just hope for the upset, right? But behind the blitzes, it's a lot of off-man coverage. So in terms of those linebackers, it's, trying to man up, trying to, win as like a cover one rat and just trying to like break on something. But it's a lot of them are going to get sent, right? A lot of them are going to be rushing the quarterback, and it's going to be, a nickel coming over trying to cover Christian McCaffrey, and guys really trying to come up and tackle. Safeties trying to come up and tackle. I should shout out Cam Bynum, who's had a phenomenal season in that regard, as the free safety coming up, making a tackle. Yeah, you got a 5-yard completion on stick and you got tackled immediately. Yep. Okay. You beat the blitz, but it was a 5-yard completion. When you beat the blitz, you kind of, as an offense, expect more than that. And so the Vikings have actually been the best defense in the league at limiting explosive plays. The fewest explosive plays allowed in the league. So if there's one thing to kind of hang your hat on for the Vikings, who have been extraordinarily, I'll go with snake bitten, maybe self bitten, because they've got a lot of self-inflicted wounds as well, some discipline issues. It's that if you're going to beat them, you kind of have to do a 14 play drive down the field. And they've allowed that. You can do that, but it has to be that hard.
Right. Okay. So you can't shortcut it, even with the high level of blitzing coming from that squad.
Right. Because they'll back everything off. And, if you're going to try to run 4 verts against that, well, we've got off man coverage. That'll never work.
Rally down to the football.
Yeah. Right. All 11 hats rally. And then, you live to fight another down if you get your blitz picked up, and then spam that 11 times and hope eventually you get a sack that gets them behind the chains and ruins everything. That's kind of the way that they've approached defense. It's had mixed results for sure. But when it works, it's really fun to watch. So do you have an overarching final prediction? I don't really care about like scores or whatever, but do you have a final take here?
Yeah, I think we're going to see an angry 49ers team coming back and getting back in the win column here. Looking at FanDuel, it's 7 points. I think that's a pretty good line. I think the 49ers can win by 7. I would predict them to win by more than that. So I would take 49ers straight up. I would take the 49ers by a touchdown and potentially more. This team's been a juggernaut this year. They've been so good offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. Kind of waiting to see, without McCaffrey and Trent and Debo, you're missing one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that big of a deal. You can overcome it. You start missing all 3, it starts to get more difficult. I will say, though, against the Browns, it's much more difficult to lose them during the game when 3/4 of Kyle Shanahan's call sheet has plays for Debo and McCaffrey, and Debo is clearly going to be a heavy part of that game plan, trying to get the ball out quick, get it into his hands. So they had to change a little bit on the fly. If he knows going in, he can game plan around 1 or 2 of those guys not being there, and I think it'll be a better result for the 49ers. So I mean, not trying to be a homer type of a pick here, but I really do like the 49ers here against the Minnesota Vikings by 10 probably.
I think they're favored by a touchdown for a reason. That's a pretty big spread in the NFL. If you want to learn more about the Vikings, 49ers fans, come on down, hang out on Locked On Vikings this week. And Vikings fans, go check out Locked On 49ers. Go check out Peacock and Williamson too, covering the whole NFL. Yeah. Brian Peacock. And I'll make an appearance on that one once in a blue moon as well. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and we will see you all tomorrow.